Hi, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time to talk about a topic that I think is really important to our jobs in the admission profession. I'll start by just talking about this quote here from Peter Drucker. The task is to lead people, and the goal is to make productive the specific strengths and knowledge of every individual. I think, hold on, I'm having, so people reasons is because I remember thinking back to the time when I looked at boarding schools or was in independent school 25 years ago. When I started 25 years ago as a student, I remember offices basically being staffed with one director, one admission person, and one support staff. And I think that's changed a lot over the last 25 years. Now with anywhere from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 staff members in it, and so obviously personnel, the personnel aspect becomes a big part of your job, not just the aspect of admission, enrollment, financial aid, marketing, but the personnel piece I think is something that's really important. I think you know, you can't do it all yourself. I've felt that this job continues to get more difficult, and the importance of having people around you, talented people around you, is really important to you being successful in your role as either as a director of admission or a dean of enrollment. And I don't think those challenges are going to get any easier. I think they're actually going to get more difficult, and I think the importance of making good use of the people who work around you is going to be really, really important. I think there's a lot of benefit to leading and mentoring your staff. I've always said that I think my success as an enrollment manager has a lot to do, or director of admissions has had a lot to do with the people that have worked around me, and I feel blessed to, over the years of being a director or an assistant head of school for enrollment, that I've had a really wonderful group of people to work around, and I think our success has a lot to do with a group of people, not just me alone. It's some of the work that I love. I think it's really purposeful and meaningful work. I think at times it can be challenging, but I think it's something that's one of the things that I love most about my job is working around the people, with the people that work in my office. I think one of the things that I've noticed over the years is you know, there's a lot of people who I think are rotating out of the admission world, out of the admission profession, and that always concerns me. The State of Admission publication that SSATB did in 2013 mentioned that only 54% of the respondents, who were all admission professionals, said that they saw themselves in admission in 5 years. And I also thought that it was interesting that at the ATI, at the Admission Training Institute at SSATB last year, that there were 113 participants. So a lot of new people getting into the admission profession, and I think it's really important that as leaders that we are mentoring people that will stay, because, you know, many of us who've been in it a long time will not be here forever, or won't be working in the admission profession forever. You know, you can talk to 100 people, and 100 people give you all kinds of different views on what a good leader is, and these are the following bullet points are, for me, what I think are the characteristics of a good leader, and something that I think a lot about in my role as a leader. One is, I think you need to have I always think this ends up at the bottom of the list, but I think it's right at the top of the list for me, is just strong emotional intelligence. I think you have to be compassionate. I think you have to be authentic and empathetic in your position. You know, I know that for many of us, the people in our offices are not just doing admission work. In many ways, they're they're working in a boarding school, they're coaching, they're doing dorm duty. You know, they have other responsibilities than just what you're doing. And as you know, in this kind of life, it's an all-consuming profession when you're working, in particular in a boarding school. But I think the same is the case in independent day schools as well. I think that a lot of the staff members have other responsibilities. But I think it's important to have good, strong emotional intelligence and to be able to sense things in ways that you know, that are important to the success of the people who work around you. I think it's important to be perceptive and savvy. I think about this often when I'm working around people, and I can sometimes get a sense of things or perceive things that that others don't, and I think that's just from being in the business for a long time, and in particular when you see the changes that have taken place. I've been in this for 24 years, and it's amazing the changes that have taken place over my time in the admission field. I think it's important to always be trustworthy. People want to trust the person who's leading them. I think it's important to be optimistic and positive no matter how stressed or worried you are about the enrollment numbers. I think it's really, really important to remain positive even when you feel stressed and worried. It's important not to wear those things on your sleeve. I think it's important to be a team builder, a collaborator. I think, again, I think the success that we've had in our office here at the Academy has a lot to do with a group of people working together as a team, and you know, it has, you know, very little to do with me. I'm just helping guide them, but you know, they bring a lot to the table, and I think working together is really important to your success in meeting your enrollment goals every year. I think it's always important to challenge the status quo as a leader. I think you know, it's always important to see how you can do things better and to evaluate that on a regular basis. In my time as a director of admission or assistant head of school for enrollment, in the two places that I've worked as a director, I have always made sure that we allot 3 times a year as an office to retreat. Once in the beginning of the year, once in the middle of the year, after the fall rush is done, right before the winter holidays, and then at the end of the year to kind of review the entire admission cycle to see how things went, what things could be improved, what we thought where we fell short, and I think those things are really important because it's always important to touch base with your staff on a regular basis to talk about you know, challenging the status quo. Finally, for me, the most important aspect of my job is to make sure I intensely focus on the success of others. If I do that well, I think that makes me a good leader. I need to make sure, similar to what Heather Hurl talks about in the new Yield piece that I read this morning, was about Jim Collins' book about getting people into the right seats on the bus. I think for me, I need to make sure that all the people in the different roles that they have within this office here and the offices that I have run in the past is that they are successful at what they do, and to make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure that they are successful. So the question always is about what's the difference between leading and managing. I I think there's there are significant differences, and I think leading is really about building relationships with people, connecting with people, and I think managing is just keeping a pulse or maintaining the process. And I don't think that that one is necessarily more important than the other. I think they're both important, but I think that the piece for me about leading is really, really important, and I think the whole concept of working with people and building relationships with those people and making connections with them is really about being a leader. I think it's being courageous. So, but that's not to say that it's not important to manage all the little things. That those things can be at times a little bit laborious and not particularly exciting, but I do think they're really, really important. So I think it's important to try to find the balance between these two. I don't think it's necessary that you need to focus on one more than the other. I think they're both important. I think certainly you can't just worry about building relationships with people, but I do think it's really obviously important to manage the process. We talk a lot about in our office, and again, we review this typically one time a year, which is the inquiry to enrollment process. And I think that's about managing and getting down in the weeds and talking about the process from inquiry all the way through to the enrollment stage. Yet I don't think there's one more important than the other. Some people may think differently. I think they're both equally important, but I think certainly there are times when you think about the idea of leading, it can times be more important than managing, but I think and most of the time they're both pretty equally important. Things to think about, again, I think that the fact that, when you think of what the admission offices looked like 25 years ago, was typically just about one person and clerical support, one clerical support person. I think nowadays, I think you do have to think more about the aspect of leading and the fact that you have people who work around you. So I've certainly read a lot of different leadership books, and Good to Great is a great book. The Servant as a Leader is a good book, but the book for me that really resonated with me when I did my program at Penn was The Leadership Challenge by James Kouzes and Barry Posner. I think this book is really great because I don't think it's, there's like Maxwell's 23 characteristics of good leadership. I think these 5 practices of exemplary leadership are easy to follow and easy to think about, and they are all 5 things that I think about in my role as a leader. First is modeling the way. The other is inspire shared vision. The third one is challenge the process. The other one is enable others to act, and the last one is to encourage the heart. So when you think of modeling the way, I think this quote for me, which comes out of the book, values serve as guides to action. Modeling the way for me is about the idea of making sure that the people around you know what your value system or your values and belief system is, and that they know your expectations, that you wouldn't ask somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. I think that's always something that I've lived by. It isn't just about just throwing out different responsibilities to people. I think it's making sure that that you are modeling the way and supporting them in those different responsibilities that you've given them. Make sure your staff knows what your values and belief systems are. You know, I think that my staff knows what's important to me. I think I'm pretty much of an open book from in that sense. It's, as I said, practice what you preach. I think if you're going to ask people to do something, again, it's important that you be involved in that as much as you can. So I think of at the time when all the accept letters go out on March 10th or whatever your notification date is, that it is truly a team effort, and you try not to be sitting in your office while your group, your team is out there putting the packets together. I think it's important that you be a part of that in some sort of way. So I think that the concept of modeling the way and its importance, I think people, I think it promotes loyalty, and I think it reduces the resentment from the people who work around you. And I think that's something that's, when I speak to people who are not in good situations or don't have a lot of respect for their leader, one of the things I feel is that there's a lot of resentment toward that person. And I think that, again, you know, practicing what you preach, I think, is really, really important. So the second one, inspired a shared vision. I like this quote: reflect on your past, attend to the present, prospect the future, and feel your passion. So inspire a shared vision. One of the things that I was really impressed by when a couple of years ago was watching Suzanne Walker Buck do a presentation on strategic planning, strategic enrollment planning, and I thought that, you know, it's something that I think admission offices should think more about, is the concept of developing your own mission and vision statement for your office. And make sure you do it as a group. We started this in our office here at Mercersburg last summer. It got a little stalled because of the craziness of the admission cycle, but we'll pick this back up here in the next couple of weeks. Is to continue to work on writing a mission and vision statement for our office, and to talk about strategic enrollment planning for the future, because I do believe that we have to get out ahead of the challenges externally, and I think this is one way to do it, is to work as a group to come up with a mission and vision statement. You know, I think this whole concept of, you know, when you talk about it, and you have a vision, but I think it's important to have a shared vision, and I think it's important, as I said, to include all of your office, to know what's important and meaningful to them, and to listen to their ideas and thoughts about the work that you do. It takes time, it takes patience, and it's hard work, but it's important work. Again, I don't think it should be just your vision alone. I think you can be the lead person in those conversations, but I do think that it's important to have it be a group effort to come up with a mission and vision statement for your office. But I would highly recommend you do it. Again, it was not something I thought about until Suzanne did a presentation on it, and she did it while she was in New Hampton, and I think that they're doing it at Chatham Hall, where she's now the head of school. So the next is the concept of challenging the process. I think this year, grow, innovate, and improve. I think it's really important to challenge the process, always trying to seek ways to do better, to get better, to grow, to innovate, to improve. I think you need to constantly always ask the question of why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it just because that's what everybody's doing, or is it something that you've been thinking in a more thoughtful way about? I don't think you should be doing something just for the sake of doing it. I think you're always thinking of that it's going to improve the process, and I think of it not just from your perspective, but the perspective of your customers. And always challenging ways to I think it's always important to find ways to grow and innovate and improve. I think it's important to keep a pulse on the realities of the external landscape, but I also think that it's important to keep a pulse on what's happening within your school community, and that now more than ever it's important for you to know as much as you can about what your product has to offer the families that are considering your school. I know it sounds very business-like, but it's true. There's a greater challenges because people have a greater expectation on return on investment. So I think you need to understand what the needs and the wants and the fears of our families are when they're looking through the process. You're seeing a larger number of first-generation families coming through the process. Are you willing to take risks and experiment? It's one of the things I love most about the work that I do with my group here with my staff here at Mercersburg is the idea of taking risks and experimenting, whether that's rethinking the application deadline, the concept of when you send your accept letters out on March 10th. We used to do it as of midnight, and we changed it to 6 a.m. because we thought about it and thought that that wasn't the appropriate time, and was at a risk because others took the opportunity to send them out at midnight or earlier. Absolutely, but I think you're always needing to find ways to stretch and challenge the people, your office staff, and all of that. So you can't do it alone. I think it's one of the things that I mentioned and about the characteristic of focusing on this, intensely focusing on the success of others. I think it's important to make sure that you empower the people around you to do the job that you've asked them to do. And I think it's really important. I think it's important that you foster that climate of trust and collaboration in your office. Don't make sure you walk the walk, and you don't just say it, but that you hire these people around you. You have the expectation that they're going to do the job, and you have to trust that they're going to do a good job. And if they don't, it's your responsibility to speak to them about it. You can't do it all yourself. I know a lot of people have a hard time relinquishing control of certain things within their offices, but I think it's really important to relinquish that control. There's no way you can do it all. As I said, because of the responsibilities of what a director is now being required to do, from marketing to communications to financial aid administration. Some people are coaching, you're managing the admission process and enrollment. You got to be able to relinquish control of things and believe that the people that you've hired around you will do a good job. Again, I think people in my office know exactly what the purpose, the common collective purpose among everybody is, and they know what my expectations are. I always use the word we when speaking about our office. I don't think I've used the word I. It's not something that I think is good. I think the fact of the matter is it is about we. important to be able to mentor and coach the group of people that you have around you. Use the expertise that you have, the number of years that you've been in the business, help them, teach them, make sure that you're approachable, and also provide them the opportunity to participate in some sort of professional development, whether that's webinars or conferences, workshops, anything that you can do to allow them to grow in their position. And I know that has a lot to do with whether or not you have the resources to support that. But if you do, do your best to provide them that opportunity. Again, not everything costs a lot of money. You know, these webinars are free, so there's no additional cost. So, and there are a lot of good webinars out there, and I would suggest that you provide them the opportunity to do that. Last of the 5 practices of exemplary leadership for me is the idea of encouraging the heart. Recognition is important, challenging, and easily forgotten, so pay attention and don't forget to say thanks. I think this is a really important aspect, is that you keep a pulse on all the work that your staff does to make your office successful. Make sure you recognize and celebrate their contributions to the cycle, and recognize people whenever you can. I think it's important to them that they be recognized for their work. And they're always, I think, very appreciative of that opportunity to be recognized for their good work. It's important to know your staff. I want to talk about this in a second, the kind of generational piece that may be a part of your office, but I do think it's important to know your staff, not just what they do within your office, but know what's important and meaningful to them. And the things that they do. I know what's important to the people that work around me, and I think it's important. I think it's my job to make sure that I know that. Think about the things you do to reward your staff in traditional and non-traditional ways. You know, we try to do things together as a staff. I think of things like on March 10th, after all the letters go out, we all try to get together and go out for some time together, and I think any time you can do that. Next week, as an office, we're heading to Gettysburg for a night because we have some extra money in the budget, and so we're going to go to Gettysburg to retreat for a day and a half and stay at this place. And so, and again, it doesn't always have to be going off campus. I know not everybody has that ability, but there are ways to recognize the people around you. It doesn't have to require a lot of money or expense. So, you know, I think it's important whenever you can to get together as a group. And if you're not retreating, I would highly recommend to you that you retreat and spend time with that group. And if you can do it 3 times a year, I highly recommend it. You'll see in the new yield piece, my senior associate director of mission, Quentin McDowell, wrote an article about our retreating 3 times a year. And if you're not doing it, you should. And if you have the opportunity, you should try every year to connect individually with each member of your staff, whether that's a walk, whether that's going out to lunch, or just a chat in the office. I'm not always good at it, but it's something that's certainly on my mind, and I certainly try to do every year, and I would highly recommend that you do it. So this was the other piece that that I think is important to know, and can be a little bit tricky within your office, is the different generational characteristics of your staff. I'm sure that for many of you who have different people working in your office who come from different generations. They have different characteristics, expectations, mindsets, all of that. And I think it's important that you have the opportunity to capitalize on these different people who come from different generations. It doesn't need to be a frustration. You don't have to get frustrated by it. It can be frustrating, but I don't think that. I think there are ways that you can capitalize and embrace the difference on the differences and values of each generation. So I think it's important to be objective. I think it's important to be flexible. Try not to stereotype and get frustrated by it. I have a group of people here in my office who span a number of different generations, and you can tell that they have different expectations and they have a different value system and a different mindset. But there are ways that you can work, which you can bring them together, and they can support one another, and you can be successful in working with each of your staff members. And again, it may vary from office to office, but I do believe it's important. So I think it's important you can learn from one another. I don't think it has to be this, one generation knows more than the other. I don't think that's the case at all. So you should know where the people around you are from. What kind of family did they grow up in is always good. What are their interests? I think those can be of value and to you as you try to determine ways to put people in different responsibilities or give them different responsibilities. When were they born? Again, I think it's important, sorry to repeat here, but I think it's important to get to know each generation's personality, the professional characteristics, the mindsets, and their communication styles. I think it's important to embrace and capitalize on the differences and the values of each generation. Again, be flexible, be objective, determine ways to inspire each generation not only to perform their best, but to work effectively as a team is important. So this is, I did this presentation with Suzanne Walker-Buck and Jill Hutchins at SATB this past fall, and Jill the different characteristics of each generation. The baby boomers, which were born between 1946 and 1964, the Generation X, 1965 to 1980, and the millennials, or AKA Generation Y, 1980 through 2000. And as you can see, they have different expectations, how they use technology. As you can see, the millennials are probably much more tech savvy than Generation X or baby boomers. And look at the different work ethic and values of each generation, and how they work together. As you can see, with baby boomers, they're always working together. Entrepreneurial. So I won't go through all of these, but I think this is a good chart to use and to refer to. And so if you're maybe dealing with a difficult situation in your office, and maybe it has something to do with their belief system or values, I think you can approach speaking to them, to one or many of them, based upon understanding what their characteristics are within their generation. So again, here are the things. Do you know what you are? As I said, the baby boomers are traditional. They value hard work. Generation Xers seek balance. They like structure. They work independently. Millennials are also very entrepreneurial. they're also ambitious, very tech savvy. So I would just say that in getting to understand and know the different characteristics of each generation, I think this will help you and inform you in the different needs that people have within your office, depending upon the generation that they were born in. It will help you, I think, to motivate them individually, and again, I think it's okay to embrace and inspire their differences. It works well. I remember a situation in our office here, and somebody who was who was a baby boomer had a challenge with another one of my staff members, and it had something to do with just acknowledging her in the morning when he would come into the building, and it was important to hear that, and I spoke to that person, and I used the concept of understanding that they're very traditional. They have that's I don't think it's about being old-fashioned. I think it's just that they have that expectation, and she thought that was very important, and this other person didn't think it was that big of a deal, and so I talked to this person on a number of occasions about it. And did it ever get better? Not exactly, but I do think that he did understand where she was coming from. It was just getting him into the habit of doing what she really thought was important for him to do when he walks in the morning. So I thought I'd move into just talking about the concept of training and mentoring your staff, and the importance of that. Again, it's something that I really, honestly, it's the thing I really enjoy about my job, and I don't dread it in any way. It's something that I really actually look forward to on a daily basis. So I think it's important to create a team culture, to create norms, and a language, and what's important to you to create that team culture. Do you include everybody in your office in decision making, whether that's an admission committee or maybe just some sort of basic thing about a different style of stationery or things like that. But I think that's you have to decide that is that a part of the norm of your office. One of the things that I did when I arrived here at Mercersburg was that the support staff were not included in on the on retreats, and I thought that seemed kind of silly to me, so they became a part of that of the retreats 3 times a year. I think it's important to support, as I said before. I think it's important for you as the director, if you're the director, to to work with them. It's your job to teach and mentor the people that you have around you. I think it's just about providing them with a job description with all the different responsibilities on it. I think it's important that you help them get better at the different things that you're asking them to do. I would collaborate with the other senior level admission people in your office to help them be a part of helping mentor and train the newer staff members. Typically what we do for every new person that comes into our office, we literally spend about a week, almost sometimes even 2 weeks, to make sure that that person is completely acclimated into the office in the most basic way before we start having them interview. I think it's important that they get to know the school, the people within the school, so we set up meetings when they first arrive. For example, I was just speaking to my administrative assistant about the importance of making sure this person's going to arrive on July 6th. He's going to start on July 6th, so we have a plan for the week of his arrival, everything from the most basic things, from getting a Pennsylvania driver's license to getting fingerprinted, which is a requirement of the school, to drive a van, to showing him where all the grocery store is, giving them a sense of the different doctors in the area, and that then also meeting with different members of the school community, from the academic staff to the our art staff to the athletic director. So we set up all that. I think it's important that you, again, have a plan in place if you have somebody coming in who's brand new. I think it's important to set up a time and allow them the time to acclimate and get to know the school before you start throwing them into an interview with a prospective family. So I already mentioned about the idea of creating opportunities for your team members to go to workshops and conferences. So I think it's important to share information. I find that I talk to some people who think it's not important to share different types of information with the people who work around you. I don't agree with that. I think it's important that you keep them apprised of institutional priorities, or if you're in the process of developing a strategic enrollment plan, that you're sharing that information and making them a part of that process. Share different publications, links to websites, articles, blogs, TED Talks. It's all important. And I would also, have them give access to any kind of reports or data that you keep for your admission office. They should have a sense of what the landscape is looking like, and that can be everything from your enrollment projection sheet to just your typical traditional admissions statistics. And also any information, I would recommend that they read the NAS trend book when they have a chance. They put that out every year. There's good information in there. I think it's important that they stay on top of what's happening externally. Engage. I think we talked about this, knowing your team individually. Make sure you're supporting the work that they do within the school, not just within the admission office, but understand that they may have coach, they may have dorm duty, they may have advisees. Again, involving them in the strategic planning process is also important, and make sure you're soliciting their input and feedback. Be clear. Make sure they know what your expectations are, and try to do your best to meet with them to assess their work. Help them develop a passion in what they're doing, and again, make sure that they understand what your expectations are, and the importance of the work that they do to the success of what of your enrollment goals. So I think it's important to be accessible, whether that be in individual meetings or team meetings, but I think it's always important to have an open door policy. I always stress to my staff as a group that when we're in admission committee or financial aid committee, that typically some decisions that are made that aren't always easy, and not everybody agrees with them, but it's important that that they are supportive of those decisions, whether they agree or disagree, and that when they leave the office, or when they leave the room that we meet in, which is typically my office, is that they leave all that frustration in the office, and that they don't get into any kind of grousing outside of our office, because, as you know, you'll make decisions, and not everybody's going to be happy with those decisions, whether it's be an athletic coach or an arts director or even a teacher. They'll try to engage you into some sort of conversation like, I can't believe you took that child, or I can't believe we have this kid. And I think it's important that I think all decisions that we make, I would hope, were all very well thought out, and decisions that we put a lot of care into. So I think it's, again, to be important, to be accessible to them so that they can be able to vent if needed. So again, I talked about this, encouraging the heart. I think it's important to be a champion for your team, always defend them, always support them, because I know not everybody understands what an admission officer does. You know, some people believe we just sit around our desks and push paper around, or we travel the world and eat fancy food and stay in fancy hotels, when that's not, you all know that that's not the case. So it's important to demonstrate that an appreciation for their work. So you know, this, I'm just going to end on this, and then I'll answer questions for the next 10 minutes. Sorry to ramble, but I think this is, you know, Brene Brown, if you've not seen her TED Talks or read her books, I think, you know, this is something that not everybody's comfortable with, but it's something that I think has been important to me in my success as a leader. And I think a lot of that is it's just the whole concept of embracing your own vulnerability. I know that sounds a little bit scary, but I have no problem with that. I don't. I'm not worried about it at all. I think it's okay to be a little bit self-deprecating, and I think to have the courage to be imperfect is also a good thing, and to have compassion for yourself and others. I think, you know, listen, I think as a leader, I think it has a lot to do with connecting with people. It's just it's a part of being a human. You just want to feel that you can connect with people, and I think in being a leader, I think it's really important to feel that you can connect with people. But I think it's not just connecting with people in a very surface level way. I think it's digging a little deeper, and I think people want to be led, but they want to feel that the person that's leading them is authentic and genuine, and I think, you know, I know for some that's not always comfortable, but I do think that has a lot to do with the people that have had the most success as leaders. So this thing, and I won't go into it, but I'll post this where I'm sure, Karen, you can find this. But this is, you know, this is when you're meeting with somebody and you're dealing with an uncomfortable situation. Brene Brown does a great job in this, in these different bullet points, and when you're talking to somebody about an uncomfortable situation, I think this is a good guide for that. I think a really good guide. And again, Suzanne Walker-Buck was the one who recommended that I read this book, and I think it's an outstanding book about you know, having the courage to live, love, parent, and lead. I think it's a great book. So I'll end on that note. I know that we're running out of time, but I did want to open up the questions if people have questions.
Great, thank you so much, Tommy. If you have a question for Tommy and you'd like him to answer it live, please type it into the question box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I will receive those and read them aloud to Tommy on the air. I would suggest that you catch him now while you still can, because this is the best time while it's still fresh in your mind to sort of get an answer to any questions that are sort of rolling around in your head. Tommy, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. Lots of good information there for everybody to think about. So obviously you did a very good job because
no questions.
We're not getting any questions. So to me that means that you did a very clear job of presenting. I would like to let everybody know as well that we are recording this webinar, and I will make it available on admission.org within a couple of days. I'll send a link to the page with the recording to everybody who's registered for the webinar. So you will be able to see that on demand at any time. So once again, thank you to the audience for tuning in. Thank you again, Tommy, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
My pleasure.